Recording in progress.
All right, we're going to call to order and start the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee meeting for June 25th, 2026. Corey, can we get a roll call, please?
You bet. Karen Burig. Here. Ken Wooster.
Here.
Tim Lanehart.
Here.
Kevin Kaysen.
Here.
Melissa Dio.
Here.
And Aaron McClellan.
Here.
Thanks, guys.
There are no public comments. There were a few that were sent in that we can kind of discuss here in a little bit, but we will save that for general business. Let's move to the approval of minutes. Is there a motion for the Parks and Rec meeting minutes for May 20, 2026?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Sure, let's mix it up. Kevin Kaysen.
Aye.
Aaron McClellan.
Yes.
Tim Lanehart.
Yes.
Melissa Dio.
Yes.
Karen Burig.
Yes.
And Ken Wooster.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Well, let's go ahead and get to our general business. First thing on the docket tonight is the pool operational assessment. This is a continued conversation we've had over the last two meetings, going over some changes in the pool schedule and a review of surveys and other things we've received. So, Scott, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, good evening. So, gonna just kind of jump right in. Tim, thanks for reminding that we've been talking about this. And so the last time you discussed it at your last meeting, the request from this committee was for staff to bring back essentially a proposed schedule based on our understanding of the operational assessment report, as well as the community priorities that we know of that we've talked about in our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to turn it over to Melissa and let her walk you through. First, we're going to show you our existing schedule, just kind of baseline, so you understand what that generally looks like. And then we're going to tee up what is basically a draft proposal from staff, very much subject to input and change and potential feedback that could alter that. But we just need to get that conversation going so that you have something to give us some direct feedback on. So that's what we're going to do. And again, I've mentioned this before, but we're staying in communication with our two swim team coaches. So again, we've got the Oregon City High School swim team, and we've got the Oregon City Swim Club, which is the private nonprofit club that operates in our facility. Those two coaches of those programs, we're working closely with them. You know, they've got a vested interest because the proposed changes do impact their programs, and it affects their current use. So we met with them last week, and we went through the proposal that we're going to discuss with you tonight, just so, you know, out of fairness to them, so they understood what was being discussed that could impact them. And I know the high school coach has provided some feedback in writing that has been sent out to you. Brian Watt did send something in just a little while ago that we just bumped out that you may or may not have seen yet. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa. She's going to walk through the information, and then we'll entertain your feedback and questions. One more thing. So for as far as what we're looking for, it's really up to the committee. We're eventually looking for a recommendation of some sort to either support a staff proposal or make some adjustments to that. That could be this evening, or that could be another meeting if you decide you need another meeting to have us bring back additional information. So really up to you. But at some point, we'll want to see if we can get a recommendation from you that we can then take forward. So with that, Melissa.
Great. So glad to be back here. I'm Melissa Sebastian, the Aquatic and Recreation Manager for our department. And Corey, are you able to bring up that?
I sure am.
Current schedule. So I will start off with saying that this is a general schedule, as our schedule does always change slightly every quarter based on the season. Especially during the summers, we see a lot more swimming lessons and recreation swims added during a 10-week period in the summer. That is different than this, but this is an example of what we did just this past spring, and our fall and our winter is very similar to this. We operate right now Monday through Saturday, and I'm gonna have Corey kind of start with the Monday through Friday part because there's a lot of information and text, and it's hard to zoom out with the small text on the screen. So we open every morning at a different time. Some days we're opening right now at 5 a.m. and other days we're opening at 6 a.m. We have our masters team that swims on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays right before our typical lap swim times. And after those programs take place, we move into water fitness classes and independent water space. And then we offer swimming lessons in the mornings on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. all year round. On Tuesday and Thursdays, we've been renting out the space to a private swim school because we have that space is slightly underutilized during the school year. So we offer that during those periods of the time. And then once we get into that, either 11 a.m. or noon, we offer a combination of recreation swims, independent lap swims, and independent workout space, which is typically people who are coming in to do independent aqua jogging or water walking, or some people have physical therapy that they'll come in and practice during those times. And so it's an independent workout space during that time. Right now, we don't have any activities that take place between 2 and 3 because it's kind of that hour where we've already offered a lot of lap swim and independent workout space, and people aren't quite out of school at that point. And so we take a break right now. Usually that's when staff take breaks, or we do some maintenance cleaning, hose the pool deck, go through the locker rooms when we have kind of a lull period and pick up stuff from the morning crowds, to prepare for the after school times, which is where we see a high use of our facility. Right now we have our swim teams coming in at 3 o'clock on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and using the pool until 7:30 in some capacity. They have the entire pool from 3 to 5. And then starting at 5 o'clock, they either have 4 lanes from 5 to 6, and then 2 lanes from 5 to 7:30. That does change slightly depending on the season. I think in the fall it was something like we had 4 lanes starting at 5:30 instead of 5 o'clock. So we did a little bit less in the fall compared to the spring. Tuesday and Thursdays, they don't come in until 4 o'clock right now, and they utilize the entire pool from 4 to 6. And then we start our water exercise programs. And then after kind of that 7 o'clock time, depending on the weekday, we're either doing evening lap swims, family swim, or general recreation swim, depending on the day. And then Corey, if you want to move into the weekends. Right now on Saturdays, this spring we did lap swim from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. What I will say is a big difference for the fall and winter is our swim teams do use the pool from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. in the fall and winter. Once we get into the months of April, May, and June, they usually go and utilize the Elks pool in Milwaukee and swim at that location during that season right now. And that's a choice that they've made to do. We offer private lessons on Saturdays right now from 11 to 2:30 while lap swim and water exercise is going on. And I will say that is a very crowded time that we have, just with the amount of high use that we have with our lap swims and independent workouts on the weekends. And then we have recreation swim from 12:30 to 2. And starting at 2 o'clock on Saturdays is when we have general public rentals. We offer reservations for either renting the pool or our large community room space. And those are typically rented out from 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock every weekend. There's very few weekends where it's not rented until 8 o'clock right now. So. And then we have some of our community room activities shown on this screen because we were able to fit it on that. So, yeah.
And just a note, is obviously we're not open on Sundays currently, which will play into the proposed schedule.
Okay. move into the proposed schedule that we have now, and I'll go through some of the changes. One of the things that wasn't in the operational assessment that Councilman Hunsaker had provided was changing our opening times. And this is something that we've discussed as a leadership team, is looking at having a consistent opening time. There's been some state code changes about posting your operating hours and the time that the pool is open. And we often have different winter events and ice events where there's city leadership making decisions on when we make the call to open, and trying to remember what time the pool opens, whether it's 4:45 or 5:45. If you're not there every day, it can sometimes be challenging to remember that. And then with our new codes, there's a lot of things that our facilities maintenance team are needing to go through and check prior to opening and prior to people getting in the water. And our facilities maintenance team doesn't start until 5 a.m. And so we're proposing to wait to open till 5:30 to give them an opportunity to arrive and be able to check all the things they have, or if they arrive on site and we have something like low chlorine or alarm going off, or we've had some water loss, we have the ability to fix some of that stuff prior to some of our programs starting. We would essentially start lap swim 30 minutes later than we do right now on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, but giving an extra 30 minutes on Tuesday, Thursdays, so it would only be a 30-minute loss of lap swim time in the mornings. Otherwise, a lot of what is in here right now, we have water exercise Monday through Friday, 8 to 9. That's what we do right now. We are proposing that we take the recommendation from Councilman Hunsaker and doing Monday, Wednesday lessons and Tuesday, Thursday lessons in the morning. But we wouldn't recommend doing the entire pool for all lessons, just because we haven't had the numbers for that and the registration demand for that. So we do believe we can still have a shared use in those morning times during the school year of having some lessons going on, and then a combination of either some open independent workout or some recreation swim time for younger families during the daytime, or some water fitness classes depending on the day. That 9 to noon time is that time in the summer where that is usually primarily used for swim lessons, and that's one of the big differences we see in the summers. From 12 to 2, again, that would be the same. Right now, it's referred to as open swim. On this schedule, that's referring to having a combination of some lap lanes as well as some lanes for independent workouts that might not be just, circle swimming and lap swimming. On Fridays, since we don't have swim lessons going on, that's where from 9 to 2, we do a combination of having additional open swims or additional daytime recreation swims in those morning daytimes. We're still recommending from that 2 to 3 to have it be open. I think there's a lot of potential opportunity for increasing, either whether it's increasing more water fitness classes or trying to continue to partner with some of our homeschooled groups for some lessons, or working with our school district on lessons. It's the same thing with those 9 to 11. There's opportunity to do those during that time, or when we have our other classes going on as well. And then we get into that 3 o'clock time, which is when we start to see some of the kids getting out of school in our community. And this is where our recommendation is at 3 o'clock every day, giving the opportunity for some teams to be able to use that facility, having the entire pool from 3 to 5 on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, extending it till 6:30 on Fridays. And then on Monday and Wednesdays from 5 to 7:15, having us have 4 lanes to be able to offer more swim lessons. The swim team have 2 lanes But then on Tuesday, Thursdays, we would split the pool and we would take 2 lanes and they would take 4 lanes. Our water exercise classes, those are the same that we have right now, the 6:15 to 7:15. And then I included that 7:15 to 8:30 time, right? I put lap swim or swim teams. I'll also say there's opportunity to still do our family swim on Tuesday nights like we have right now. I put it in the color gray because I think that's kind of that like gray area where like depending on the season, we might, put some of our swim teams there during that high school swim season because we don't have just the Oregon City High School and the club team. We also have Gladstone and St. John's using the facility, and they'll usually use some of those later times during those seasons. Fridays, we would start our family swims earlier, so 6:30 instead of 7:30, and we would extend it by a half hour and have it be 8:30. So this would kind of like what I spoke to at the beginning, having those consistent opening times. This would allow us to have consistent closing times as well, and essentially be able to say that we operate Monday through Friday from 5:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., which is easy for communicating with staffing and when our facility has doors open and when the doors close each day. And then if we can move to the weekend.
Melissa, before we jump over
Yeah.
to Saturday and Sunday, if we could hold back where we were just
Sure,
for a
yeah.
moment, Corey, thank you.
Down below.
Yeah, or kind of in the middle of that, showing the afternoons. Yeah, that's great. I just want to emphasize something that is one of the bigger changes. So based on the feedback we received in our community survey that we did over the last couple of months or so, we presented that information to you at the last meeting. We heard pretty strongly that there was a lot of interest in having 2-day-a-week swim lessons versus the 3-day-a-week that we offer right now. There was a question or two that came up about, are we going to be cutting back the number of days that we offer to then, if we're going from 3 days a week to 2 days a week, are we shortening the program essentially for the kids learning to swim? And the way it works right now, correct me if I'm off a little bit here, Melissa, but it's 3 days a week for 3 weeks, so that's 9 lessons. Yep. We would be going to a 2 days a week for 4 weeks, so there's 8 lessons. We're missing a day, but that actually lines up, I believe, with the American Red Cross or our program that we work with, right, for the lessons.
Yeah, theirs are 8 days, but the times are slightly longer than our class times. So, yeah.
So,
I think what I will say is it does line up with, we see a model within a lot of the smaller swim schools that are out there for either 1-day-a-week lessons or 2-day-a-week lessons. So it's really common in a lot of, other facilities to do those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of that feedback that we heard was there would be some pretty strong interest in going to a 2-day-a-week model. But that then the times that we would propose to use, and again, based on that community feedback from back in our Parks and Rec Master Plan update, which basically says that the number one priority at our swimming pool is lessons. That is the top priority. And then everything falls kind of in line after that. So we're responding to that. We're also responding to the national modeling and the industry standard that was, the outcome of that report by Councilman Hunsaker, which is that we were not in alignment with what most aquatic facilities do. Again, if we had more water, more lanes, more pools, we would be able to adjust this differently. But we're basically proposing to find a model that fits, that we still, then we're compromising, so we're still offering time to the swim teams. We're not completely cutting them out of that late afternoon after school time, but it does move them into some different uses a couple of those days a week, and it does certainly shift things around, but we're offering the same amount of days. There's also some potential for some change opportunities on weekend availability that we'll discuss in just a moment. But I just wanted to call out that this proposes going to a 2-day-a-week lesson model versus our current 3-day-a-week, which we see as has some positive benefit for a number of reasons. And I think some of the informal feedback that we hear is, parents taking their kids somewhere 3 days a week and only having to do that twice a week obviously with the family schedules and all that stuff, I think provides some additional opportunities for people that maybe it's a little less of a strain on that family time. So I think there's a number of different things.
Yeah. Thank you for going through that. So right now, we do have that 7 a.m. time. What we're recommending is that we offer time for some teams to use the facility on Saturdays from 7 a.m. to noon. But from that 9 to noon, we would utilize anywhere from 2 to 3 lanes to offer more swim lessons than what we do now on Saturdays. When you look at Sunday, have that gray area again where, seasonal and dependent on staffing levels where we may be able to offer some Sunday lessons, but my recommendation for us starting to talk about operating on Sundays is to starting out with some lower staffing needs to see how we do with that. Offering, definitely continuing to do Saturday swim lessons, expanding some of those. And then as we have the staff available, offering Sundays as well, or during other seasons, offering some group lessons that would take place on Saturdays and Sundays and fitting those in where we can. When we get into that 12 to 2 time, both Saturday and Sunday having open swim and open lap swimming and water walking, and moving our family recreation swim time to more in the middle of the afternoon. I know that we have pretty low attendance with our 12:30 to 2, and we've heard a lot of feedback from our patrons that that's an inconvenient time. It's when, a lot of young kids are napping, and so moving it to the, middle of the afternoon, we feel like would be a better option, as well as extending it an extra 30 minutes. And we would wait to offer our rentals until 4 o'clock on Saturdays, but we would offer some on Sundays right now. So we'd still be able to offer the same amount of rental hours that we do now, as well as add some, which I think would be a really big benefit because we're often full with our rentals. And the other thing I want to note about these rentals is that this could include some private use with different clubs and groups. Right now we have a lot of kayaking groups that like to use our facility, and so that might be something where we could move them into the Sunday rentals instead of on those Saturdays, since we're condensing some of that time. And so with the Sunday operating hours, that 12 to 6 between the open lap swimming and the rentals, that would give us a model of not needing more than 3 to 4 staff members, whereas swim lessons we typically need about 6 to 8 people on staff. And so this would give us a little bit of a stepping stone to start to open on Sundays at a lower level, and then as we build up the staffing for that, start to increase our programming as we get that added.
So just a couple of different points for you to think about. And again, we've been very much in communication with our swim team coaches and having a transparent conversation with them about all of this. Clearly, they would prefer things to stay as they are, and we understand that. And by no means does saying that swim lessons is identified as our top priority doesn't devalue any of the other uses of the pool. There are lots of very important and great uses of the pool, including our swim teams. We value them. We want them to continue to be at our pool. It's just a matter of figuring out the prioritization of when we can do these things. A couple of the things that we've heard in terms of their feedback, to share that with you is, we've proposed this as a very general, high-level idea. By all means, it's open for discussion and change. But we wanted to at least start with kind of having a baseline operation so that we can kind of think about it in that way, with the understanding that, as Melissa said, things change in the summer. We go to different schedules then. And then the other kind of question is, then we had a good discussion with the swim teams about this, is, do we adjust this seasonally during the high school swim schedule, which is basically November through February? Is it possible that we would amend our baseline schedule just during that season, and that would allow for them to kind of have that, remain whole, at least during the high school season, the rest of the year with the swim club swimming most of the year round or all year round, that wouldn't be the case. So that's kind of a question that's been asked, and we didn't want to propose a bunch of different kind of, confusing concepts. We just wanted to say, this is our baseline. We want to start with that and just kind of see if that makes sense. Again, with, I think the big, kind of the big point being we're going to 2 days a week. So it'd be Monday, Wednesday lessons and Tuesday, Thursday lessons at different time slots. So people in the community have, there's everything from basically 4 o'clock until 7:15 in the evening, various times and different days. So that gives good opportunities and good options for different days and times. And then the other big change is adding Sunday. So that's what part of the discussion that we wanted to have is, do we want to think about adjusting this during swim season? Some other conversation was, could we adjust some of the lane use during some of our overlap times in that, particularly, I think, like the 4 to 5 time slot, where they were suggesting that maybe we could reduce a couple lanes.
Start at 4 o'clock instead of 5, but then each have 3 lanes.
So there's some detail in there that probably PRAC doesn't necessarily want to get into, but just that that we're thinking of ways that we can try to put this puzzle together and make it work. The other piece of this, one of the big concerns that we heard from the swim teams, I think you might have heard this at some of the other conversations about this, is the after-school busing for the activities at the high school, specifically with the high school swim team. There's an activity bus that picks kids up right as they get out of school at the high school, up above on the hill, and it brings them down. Some of the kids that are doing sports at the stadium near the pool hop off the bus, and then they drop off at the pool. So two of the 5 days a week, that would be a different scenario, and they I don't speak for the school district, but I'm just telling you what we've heard is that might be difficult then for the school district to provide that busing at a later time. So it's just basically right after school. So what we're hearing from the swim teams, or the high school swim team specifically, is that might create a hardship on the kids that don't drive or that don't have the ability for some person to pick them up after school and drive them. Some of the kids drive and can get themselves there still. So a couple of those days a week, there's a potential hardship. I'm not sure what the solution is for that. Again, we're just trying to respond to, what we're hearing as community priority and seeing how we can put all this together. So, but just wanted to put all that in front of you to understand that that's some of the feedback that we're hearing. We don't have perfect solutions for all of this. What we've looked for here is some compromise and saying, can we kind of meet part way? And I think this proposed schedule does that pretty well. There's no perfect thing, but we're certainly open to considering some adjustments.
All right. A lot of good information to kind of review and go through. I want to take a moment. We did get a public comment in from Brian Watt, who's a coach, and I wanted to read that at this point just to note what he had sent in just before the meeting, and then we can open this up to conversation. And again, this is from Brian Watt. And I'll just read off what he has here. The recent operational assessment recommends a reduction of the presence of the OCHS Oregon City High School Pioneer Swimming at the Oregon City Municipal Pool from 5 days a week to 3 days a week. Additionally, the City of Oregon City is looking into moving practice times for the Oregon City High School swimming team to after 6 p.m. Current practice time is 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. The problem, losing the 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. time slot would result in a loss of students in the program, as we would no longer be able to have the convenience of the activity bus, which leaves the school directly after release from class. Students would be left without transportation, and the responsibility would be shifted to the families to get them to the facility. Completely losing Tuesday and Thursday afternoons at the Oregon City Pool would also result in a loss of students in the program due to lack of transportation, and hiring transportation to another venue on Tuesday and Thursday evenings would cost estimated thousands in taxpayer dollars. Additionally, there are usually 3 or 4 Thursday afternoons during the season scheduled for home meets at the Oregon City Pool. Bottom line, Oregon City High School swimming needs to retain current structure of practice times 4 to 5 days a week, including scheduled swimming meets on Thursdays in order to maintain our student numbers and levels of success. The head coach estimates that we will lose over 30% of students, approximately 20 students, if the recommendations in the operational assessment are followed. He gives a bit of background here. The relationship between Oregon City High School and the city has been in existence for decades, since the opening of the municipal pool in 1966. A wonderful after-school activity. Dave Fish, city employee and first pool manager in 1966, was also the coach of the AAU team and high school team. Through the years, Oregon City High School swimming has continued to grow and excel, recently attaining an average of 60 Oregon City families. Over the last 2 years, the largest combined boys-girls team in 20 to 30 years, and most likely in the history of the program. Nearly all of these 60 families have a stake in the operation of the municipal pool, as Oregon City citizens' taxes pays for its entire operation. Since head coach Brian Watt took over in 2010, we've been building the team up from 20 to 30 students, renting initially 3 lanes, then 4, and finally 6 lanes starting in 2020. The 2025-2026 season was extremely successful and exceptional for the Pioneers. The ladies placed 3rd at state, the highest placing the state championship meet in the history of the program since building of the pool in 1966. 4th place in 2019. The men placed 9th at state, which was the best placing since 2015 when they were 2nd place overall, which was the boys' plus best placing in the history of the program. Conclusion: if the recommendations of the operational assessment are followed, it would be very detrimental, having the effect of cutting the legs out from under district's high school team just 2 years after regaining funding from the Oregon City School District. This is not an acceptable outcome. The City of Oregon City staff, mayor, and commissioners need to know that following the recommendations of the operational assessment would be very detrimental to the continued success of the Oregon City High School Pioneer swimming team that we've worked so hard for. Final note: the service classification priority scale outlined in the operational assessment needs to be revised by the city. The priority system established in the city's master plan is driving big decisions, and swim team, currently a number 3 out of 3 priority, is the city's source for the most qualified and strongest lifeguards, swim lesson instructors, and swim safety instructors, all priority 1 service classifications. During COVID, for instance, 2020, 2021, and beyond, the OC Municipal Pool was open when most of their pools in the area were closed. Why? The reason it remained open was because of the quality of guards we were able to acquire, because we had a swimming team on site. A closed pool cannot achieve any of its priorities. And again, that is from Coach Brian Watt, but as a public comment for this debate. All right, we can now open up for conversation.
Sorry, I do have some questions in relationship to the comment, and then as I was looking at the schedule. So as this being just a draft potential, it does appear as if there is some space that has been accommodated, allows for the swim teams to be in that slot between 3 and even up to 7:30, but it's just not a full 6 lanes. So they're used to having the full pool, whereas this proposal would have portions of the pool being used for other purposes.
Yes.
Is that part of it? And then another question I have is, can you explain what junior swim teams are versus swim teams? So I didn't quite understand that in reference to the comments.
Yeah, it's any of the students who are part of the swim teams that are not in middle school, so anyone in grade school.
Okay.
Essentially, so, because a lot of the middle schoolers and high schoolers can't get to the site until around that 4 o'clock time.
Mm-hmm. And are those are different than the high school team?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, the high schoolers have historically started their practices at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Can I ask you a follow-up on that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do the junior swimmers get there to the pool?
Parents.
I can answer this because my son is on the junior swim team.
So they don't have a bus.
They do not have a bus. No, we drive.
Yet they make it to practice.
They do make it to practice.
Okay.
Though if we did move it to 3 o'clock, my son would no longer be able to be on junior swim team.
Okay.
Oh, because right now it starts at 4.
Yep, and most of the families who have the younger kids, they don't have that option of having a bus there. So if you move
Okay.
it to 4, working families who would have that, I would have to take my son out of the swim team. So seeing that was one of the first things I was like, is worrisome of having the junior kids there because they rely so much more on parents to get them to places, whereas high school kids have that excess of the bus right now that's there.
Sure. We do right now have swim teams utilizing the facility on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays from 3 to 4. And Mondays and Wednesdays, we'll typically see about 40 people practicing, right around that number. Fridays, it's a little slower.
All right, we can keep them opened up. Okay, other questions?
Yep. So what school teams use the pool? You said Gladstone and Oregon City and
Oregon
St.
City
John's?
High School, Gladstone High School, and then the private Catholic St. John's, the Apostle High School.
And they use it all year?
No.
Okay.
The only team that uses it all year is the Oregon City swim team.
Which is the private?
Yeah,
Type of school.
yeah, technically they're
OSAA
they're
won't
Legacy
allow-
Aquatics,
Right.
but
Okay.
they often refer to themselves as the Oregon City swim team.
Okay. And then,
Can I, clarification on that, you might want to mention, so the Oregon City High School gets that time slot, the after school mostly, but I think the other high
Yeah.
school teams, we work
Yep.
them into different slots because they're not.
Yes, yeah, we
So-
give priority to Oregon City High School for that after-school time. Gladstone High School and St. John's share the pool, typically starting their practices at 7:30.
and then, it seems like Brian has been commenting on the Councilman Hunsaker thing mostly. And so, but he's seen this proposal, but he doesn't comment on it. He goes back to the original.
We shared this exact proposal with them last week.
And how was it received?
I think,
Lukewarm?
yeah, I think, again, I think, there'd be a preference to have what they have now. The reality is, I think we need to find middle ground the best we can, and not, this may or may not be that solution, but I think there's gonna be some change that needs to happen, and we're gonna have to find how that fits.
Right. So this is still a work in progress. So you've come a long way from the Councilman Hunsaker report. And at least in my, purview of looking at it. So I'm confused as why we would keep talking about going backwards.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about, every time we reach a new proposal or.
Yeah, I think, this is just a process that we're just trying to work through and have good dialogue, because it is a pretty significant change to what we've historically done. But I think, to your point, Ken, the Councilman Hunsaker report basically said you should just reserve all that after school and early, late afternoon, early evening time just for lessons, and not even accommodate the swim teams, basically. I think that's what you're getting to, right?
Well,
Somewhat.
actually, I'm getting to, I understand that, and we've pretty well decided that that's not gonna happen, right? So I'm confused as to why we keep going back and say, and the word in the community is that we're kicking them out of the pool, when that's not the case.
Yeah, I agree with that. We're doing everything we can to find a good solution. We're offering the same number of days and, perhaps even some additional weekend time that hasn't historically been used, but that would be a big change. But yeah, still very much daily practice opportunities.
Just wanted to make sure I was on the.
Erin, I see your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I along the same lines, I just want to clarify, because I think, again, this 3 to 5, 3 to 6 feels like the really contentious time on here. And the big change that I see on here is that the high school was moved down and the junior swim teams were moved up. I don't see swim lessons taking over this 3 to 6 time. Does that feel accurate?
I think ultimately anything in that yellow color could be used for either a junior swim team or high school team or club team. I know one of the conversations that we had with both Matt and Brian last week is that they think they'd really only use that 3 to 4 time on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and not on Tuesday, Thursdays. And then using that 4 o'clock time more for the middle school and high school still. So it would still
Okay.
be utilized in some way by the high school teams. The big difference is on Tuesday and Thursdays, starting at 4 o'clock, we would use 2 of those lanes. Whereas right now,
Okay.
the teams are using all of them.
I see.
So there, just to clarify there, I think your question, Erin, was, are we doing swim lessons in that 3 to 6 time?
Yeah, and now I'm looking at it and
Yeah,
I do see
and we are
clearly
doing
it
so,
says
yeah.
4 to 6. Yes.
Great.
Thank you. Sorry about that. And so again, just hearing Tim's comment on there, have we talked to junior swim teams about if it's helpful to take over this 3 to 5 time? Because to me, it feels like if we did go ahead and move the high school swim teams back to when they have that transportation, because for me and what I've been hearing from the community, that's a very big issue. And I feel like while we discuss it, it feels a bit like it's getting glossed over. And having that transportation feels like a very big issue to me personally, and again, to what I see in the comments from the community. And so I'm not sure why, if there's not a direct need or want from the junior swim teams to take over that 3 to 5 slot, why we're not just putting the high school teams back there.
Sure. I mean, kind of like what we talked about at the beginning, this is a general proposal. The high school season, even what I had shown with what we do during what we just did in the spring, it doesn't have the high schools there, but it identifies swim team use. Essentially what happens between our fall, winter, and spring is we utilize those times that are dedicated to swim teams, and we alter whether it's being used for high school or it's being used for club. Anything that is labeled as that junior swim team is a part of our overall club team. And they will typically work with Brian. Brian and Matt work really close together because Brian also coaches for the club team as well as the high school team on coordinating use between the club and the high school when that season takes place. So I do think we would still have opportunity to have lane use for those high schools on those, days from 4 to 5 that we have dedicated from 4 to 5. And again, kind of what Scott mentioned, there is opportunity specifically during that high school season to not do this exact schedule and do a variation of it.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. I really appreciate that. I think for me, I feel like because the swim lessons taking over that 4 to 6 time is sort of the new introduction to this, whether it's swim team time. It sounds like there's coordination between the different swim teams there. But the 4 to 6 swim lessons, it makes sense to me to maybe propose that schedule that's for the high school swim team has a different schedule time when they're in their season, and see if that feels more amenable to that group, where again, I think they bring up very good points about having where our lifeguards come from, where our swim teachers come from, and all of that. I don't want those things glossed over. So I think I would like to see maybe what does that look like, but I'd really like to hear more, what does the swim team and that area feel about having that seasonal approach to this, and then seeing how that 4 to 6 swim lesson time works in the non-high school season time. So that would be my sort of, this is what I kind of see as maybe being able to work in the next iteration of this plan.
If I can provide some quick feedback to that, yeah, thanks for the comments on that. Yes, again, the idea of, do we want to flex the schedule during that primary high school swim team schedule season, which is November through February. The choice is that we would then be saying, for that period of time, we're going to prioritize the high school swim team over the community priority that we are acknowledging. We heard from, you know, the different processes that said that. That's certainly something we can do. It's just a choice that we would need to decide. And it's understanding that we would then be reprioritizing that use for that period of time. So it's, you know, it's a third of the year. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, it kind of goes along with what Aaron was just talking about, and I think you were getting to that a little bit, was as we go into some new schedule, whatever that ends up being, it will be an adjustment for the community. And we may find out that some of the time slots that we think we're hearing from the community that they would like for swim lessons may not be as well used as we're thinking. So I just want to put it on the table that, you know, we're always going to be looking to understand what things are working and not working, especially if we do something quite different than we're doing now. So we could do this, and then some point into that process, we could say, hey, that we don't need this time slot, whatever that may be. Let's look to move that back for high school use or whatever the case may be. So we're always going to be thinking of, if something isn't working for what we thought was a priority, we'll go back to the swim teams and say, would you like this time back? Or how can we, you know, or maybe we adjust the number of lanes we're using down and give them more lane time back. We could do that, you know, as a response as well. So there's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll add that that's a practice that we do now too. Like we just had that conversation this week about extending some of their time later in the evenings, and we typically will do that year round. If we ever have a week where we don't have some lessons or a lull period or like some space where we can expand, we'll usually have that conversation stay open.
One other quick comment is thinking of that, if we did the seasonal adjustment for the high school swim season, we would have to ensure that somehow so our swim lessons schedule then would be, the times would be moved around. So we'd have to be thinking strategically about lining up the beginning or ending of swim lesson sessions with that schedule and how that might kind of work into that. So there could be a little bit of challenge in making sure that lines up, but that's part of the consideration as well. So in other words, we could be doing lessons between September and early November, and then, you know, looking for the week that we need to stop that schedule and then flip into the next session when we adjust for the swim team, if that's what the choice was to do. And that could be, I suppose, a little tricky with timing on how we line up those. You know, the 4 weeks have to line up just right to the beginning of a swim season or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's something we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do that now, right?
Yep. Yeah. And that might be where, you know, during that high school swim season, Monday through Friday, maybe we do something different that season, and that's the season where we try to focus on offering more on Saturday and Sundays. So I think there's some flexibility with doing things different depending on the season.
Go ahead.
Good.
I had one thing. I do notice that there's the water exercise from 6:15 to 7:15 on those 2 days a week. And it seems to me that 3 to 8 period really should be prioritized between the swim teams and the swim lessons. And that as you're rethinking a schedule, perhaps pushing that water exercise down into the 7:15 to 8:30 might find some flexible space for those, figuring out those uses. But I wasn't quite sure why that was sort of taking up that kind of prime space.
It's a really highly utilized program. We'll have, we typically have between 50 and 60 people attending those classes right now. And we have a really high demographic of older adults in our city. And so it's the one, you know, after work hour fitness class that we have.
And it's at that particular time now. I still, I guess, would encourage thinking about that as we're sort of balancing these things out, because it's kind of like we're asking different things of different groups, right? And it might be that each group needs to shift a little to be able to accommodate the different needs.
Aaron, I see your hand raised. Please go.
Thanks, Tim. I wanted to note that we've brought up the ranking of the community priorities a couple times additionally. And I think, Ken, I think you talked about the the Councilman Huntsinger piece and how we kind of need to set that aside, but that was based on those community rankings. And I think a lot of the objections that I'm seeing are also coming from that ranking of swim teams being at a level 3. And while I don't want to open up revisiting how we prioritize all of our pool for Park and Rec and how we do those rankings, I think it's important to note that not all community processes are perfect in the way that we look at them, and we may not have considered all of these things that are being brought to light now about how we build lifeguards and we build all of this staffing from this engaged audience. So I think while I hear the need to say, okay, if we prioritize during the high school time, the swim teams, we need to be okay with the fact that we're not prioritizing with the community. But I also think we need to hear the very vocal community that has been active in the last 3 to 4 PRAC sessions that are saying that this isn't working for the community. So that's more of just a comment from me. And then I had one other thing and I lost it. So if I have one more, I'll raise my hand again, but that's it.
Perfect. Thank you, Aaron. Scott, go ahead.
Kind of to that point, but it's something I wanted to mention as well. The thought about I know a lot of the feedback from the swim teams have been that maybe they feel like they were misprioritized in that master plan process. And I think Aaron raises a very fair point, which is how that got determined and what that came out of perhaps could be reconsidered. And I would suggest that even, let's just hypothetically say that was reopened and we somehow reclassified the swim team use to another priority level, and perhaps even a number 1. There was like a 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, let's just hypothetically say they got reclassified to a 1 priority along with the swim lessons. We're still basically in the same boat, which is competing uses for the same time for limited pool space. So my thought to that is why we're being thoughtful to try to meet part way is that we're saying, what if both of these are priorities in the community? There certainly is a longstanding use by the swim teams at that time, but we're trying to adjust based on some of the new feedback that we're hearing. And I think what we're doing is compromising. So I think even if that were the case, that's what I would still propose to you, is that we've got to find a compromise. And that's essentially what we're doing. We're not simply taking the recommendation of our consultant work and saying, we're going to move all the swim teams to just later times that they only, I think we're already trying to find that, like, where we're saying we do value the swim teams. We prioritize them, but even if they were both ranked at the same level, we'd still be in this same boat. So just a kind of food for thought there on that.
Thanks.
Do you mind if I quick respond? Sorry, just to that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tim, sorry. I think just for the record on that one, I was responding, my last piece comment was in response to, we have to decide during the high school swim team time if we want to prioritize something that is a level 3 versus a level 1, which is, Scott, I think what you had kind of brought up to us as an opportunity if we decide to make a different schedule during the high school time versus this time. And so I think that I'm totally on board with exactly what you're saying, that yes, we do have to figure this out, but if there's an opportunity to test it out and still meet the needs of the swim team while we're testing out new swim lesson times, maybe at different times during the season, I think that also achieves the same goal.
Okay. I have a few quick questions just to follow up in here. So we've heard a little bit from the swim team on how many hours are reduced. How many additional swim lessons does this new schedule give us? So where is the compromise? How many more people are getting swim lessons with this schedule versus the normal one that we have each week?
We haven't gone through and calculated the exact number of individual lessons we would offer for this compared to others. What we have figured out is that if we switch to a Monday, Wednesday, and a Tuesday, Thursday versus a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we'd be able to fit between 2 to 3 additional sessions a year, which would be around 300 additional participants if we offered the same amount of lessons each session. So.
Okay. Just make some notes in here. So I have a lot of thoughts just kind of going through here. There's a lot that I do like with this proposal. I really like uniform 5:30 to 8:30 Monday through Friday. As someone who has a lot of staff he has to schedule, that makes it so much easier to have that uniforms there. One thing that I have, and I think the big question that I've heard through 3 of these sessions now is the big issue right now is we need more swim lessons. And as a parent who's tried to have his kids in swim lessons for a while, I know how tricky that can be. And so hearing that, I think, is a great thing. The one thing that I was really hoping, and I think the push for Sundays is that's like the best time for swim lessons. And I think that I know your note on the staffing of, something we can build up to. We want to get to Sunday swim lessons. To me, the only reason we would open on Sundays is for swim lessons. I mean, that's a time where most families can come in, use the pool, something that was in the survey last month. Just opening for open swim and rentals just seems like a lot of extra work for Melissa to do that doesn't really help serve the community. Even if it's for a long-term goal of getting swim lessons there, getting the staffing there, I don't think that helps solve any questions, but it has a lot more, staffing and the burden that's there. So if we're doing Sunday, let's, find a way to add in swim lessons to that portion. I just don't think that having Sundays and not putting swim lessons there helps solve any problems. I have a lot of other thoughts on this. I haven't seen enough pushback or really anything through this that says we should change the swim team's lessons at all. I think that there's a lot of gaps with the Sundays, 7:15 to 8:30, moving around the water exercise where we can add swim teams without reducing their usage. And I do think that there's a better way to adjust this that can fit it. I think that there is a lot of good things in this change, but I disagree with a lot of from what we've heard through 3 meetings now on where the swim lessons are right now. I think that there's a lot of gaps in here where we can add swim lessons, but we don't have to reduce the usage from the other groups. So just my personal comments on it for where we stand through 3 meetings. Swim lessons on Sundays, I wouldn't reduce the swim team's usage that's there, but I would find ways to add in more swim lessons through some of these gaps. 7:15 to 8:30, moving the water exercise class, which I have seen every Tuesday, Thursday that I'm there as an older group to a later time. I think that there's a way to adjust this to compromise even more to where we're not having to reduce that and where we can fit in with the school schedule that's there. Melissa, I saw your hand up for a second. Did you have something?
Nope, I'm just pretty much agreeing with everything you and Aaron and everyone else has said.
So just a lot of thoughts over there. Not mean to attack what's here. It's just, when I think of the community that I talk to, it's just Sundays, let's do swim lessons. That's like, the whole reason why I would even want Sundays to be open. So my own thoughts on it. Other comments or questions on this so far?
Yeah, so I'm still a little confused then. So help me understand, when the high school season is over, as it sits right now, do those same kids get the same time under a club? Or what happens to that time slot once the season's over?
It goes back to the club using that time. And then we will use more. So Corey, can you flip back to what our general schedule is? Because that is the schedule that we have right after high school season.
This one.
So this is what we did right after the high school season this year. The club team used it Monday through Friday from either 3 to 5 or 4 to 6. And then we started using some lanes starting at 5 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. So
how do the kids get there during the off-school season?
it's a combination of parents, grandparents, them driving themselves depending on the age groups. So we do have a lot of high schoolers that swim year round on the high school, the club team.
Mm-hmm.
And during the high school season, they'll typically practice with the high school instead of the club. And so there is some similar user groups with that. But it's really the club team not having as much lane space during that high school season.
But then afterwards, then they gain.
Yes. Yeah, it goes back to them utilizing it from 4 to 5.
And it's the same coach doing both?
combination of coaches.
Okay. Other questions?
I have
Please
some
go ahead,
questions.
Kevin. Or go ahead, Kevin.
So, what is the cost to open this building on a Sunday, and how much is that going to affect your staffing for the rest of the week? And when would you have to hire more people? Is there
We
availability
would have
for
to
lifeguards?
hire, yes, we'd have to hire more people, yeah.
And is your budget going to allow that?
I mean, we've gotten the question about operating on Sundays before, and we've calculated it, and it would be a subsidized use. I mean, overall, operating swimming pools are highly subsidized. So,
$1 million.
it would be an additional cost.
Okay.
I'll just add on to the question about the budget, Kevin, which I do appreciate that, because that's part of this too, is we're talking about, ideas and what we could do and we're trying to meet community priorities and balance all the uses, but there certainly is budgetary impact to some of this stuff. And those are just things that we're gonna have to, as we take this through, we're gonna need to bring this to our city commission at some point with some kind of recommendation, which is a lot of your feedback is part of that. And certainly there would be some budgetary discussion then at that point. Our budget is approved on a biennium, so we're approved through June 30th of 27 right now. We would, if we change the schedule during the midst of that budget, we'd have to potentially make some budget adjustments, and whether we could absorb costs or not, that certainly could be, a request that has to go to the city commission to make a budget adjustment. So I appreciate that. We're also looking at, some of this could be additional revenue generating, but there has been discussion at recent other PRAC meetings about how much we subsidize, how much do we recover. I want to just remind this committee again, we're thinking about that piece of it, and this ties into your question or comment, Kevin. We're going to do a fee study for the whole Parks and Rec department, including the swimming pool, later this year, that will probably suggest that we need to make some adjustments on some of our fees that we charge to any of the potential uses at the pool that could affect that recovery rate and how we operate within the budget and what that looks like. So just want to keep that on everybody's radar, that we're also thinking about the revenue generation. And I frankly, just from kind of a professional look at this, from having the experience of operating pools, I think we're under market on a lot of what we do at the pool, frankly. And what that means exactly, we'll bring some outside help in to help us do a market analysis and figure that out. And then more conversations probably about that piece of it. But that's a big part of this as well, is we're going to look at the schedule, and then we have to think about the timing of changes, and then how that affects our budget is all part of this. So I'm appreciative of that thought being brought into that.
And so if you have, do you have a cost per lane to operate? And or so how much money do you make, how much revenue do you make if you have 2 hours of swim lessons in 6 lanes? And how much revenue do you make if you have 6 lanes with swim team in 6 lanes?
Sure. We have that. I don't have the answer.
So are we subsidizing these teams for these lanes?
Yes. We went through a fee analysis back in 2020, and it was the most highly subsidized group and program in our entire department.
And is it why?
It comes down to all of those, it's a combination of indirect and direct costs. Swimming pool, in general, we have a high cost with providing electricity and keeping chlorine in the pool, and
But how come we're not charging enough to cover those costs?
Let me jump in on that one. Again, a very fair point. The most recent study, it did not catch us up, I think, to where we need to be. I wasn't here for that, so I'm not criticizing anything. I think there's a number of factors. One is just history. When you have longstanding programs or uses, it's hard to jump from, 15% recovery to an 80%. I'm just making up numbers, or whatever the number might be. I don't know how the recommendations were developed on that particular one, which is again why my professional lens tells me that I think there's some things that still need to be adjusted or looked at pretty closely. And what I do know as well, to be fair to the past, we didn't have some of the information then that we do now with Councilman Hunsinger report kind of telling us what industry standards are. Our Parks and Rec master plan had not yet been adopted, telling us this is what the priority needs to be, or these are the priorities. I think we also need to align our fee schedule and a rate study with our priorities that we know today. And I don't think that was information that was as clear at the point in time that we did our last one. So I think there's a number of factors that probably why we're still, I think, frankly, behind on a number of those.
But isn't that one of the reasons we're realigning this right now? To
Yes.
get costs back in alignment?
That is part of the recommendation process is to, we're taking it, there's steps. This is the first big step is looking at the uses. And then part two is, all right, what's our rate and fee recovery process? And are those aligned with our priorities as well? So we want to make sure those both are in alignment, and that's where we're going to intend to get.
And this is something we covered last year with the cemetery too. We had to update their fees. We did a study on what all the local cemeteries were going. We're so under market on everything that I know we increased, almost doubled some of them just to get up to the average. And then over the course of 3 to 4 years, I think they're upping other ones to get there. Not that that's what we need to do here, but just to note similarly what they did with that one.
Yeah, one of the things that happened too, we did our fee study in 2020, and that was back when our swim teams didn't have to have lifeguards guarding their teams. We were alerted by the state that they wanted all of the pools to provide lifeguards to swim teams. And so when we added that additional staff cost, we did pass some of that cost on to our teams because it was a really big impact on our staffing levels. And I think there was some hesitancy of increasing it more just because of that big increase we had done for that piece of it.
Okay, sorry, I'm just digging into that a little bit because I wasn't, I wasn't here for the last meeting too, so I'm sorry for that. But the other thing that I am in support of supporting the high school team November through February. Like, I think that makes sense because, all the kids that go to Oregon City High School are city residents. So that to me makes sense. The club team out of season, getting priority over lanes over swim lessons, I don't agree with. I think that we should have priority for swim lessons when their sport is not in season. So that's my personal opinion. I don't have anyone in swim, so I don't have swimmers in my family that attend these, so I don't have I'm not biased in that area. So anyway, those are the comments that I have. So thank you. I think this is a good start, though, on the schedule. So I know there's a lot of juggling in here, and I do not envy you to do this because no matter what you do with this schedule, you are going to have someone mad at you. So,
Sure.
And
it's a very loved
empathize
facility.
with you. So.
Aaron, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I had a question about, I'm so glad you brought up the re-looking at the fee schedule. Is there a way to maybe accelerate the pool part of that, looking at the fee schedule versus the whole of Parks and Rec? I think you mentioned it's all of Parks and Rec that we'd be looking at, which I think includes rentals and such. But is there a way to accelerate it so that if we're looking at potentially making changes of, November through February, that if we don't make changes and we are losing higher revenue generating pieces like swim lessons during these hours, that we can maybe recoup some of that revenue generation and understand that better?
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion and certainly something we could look at. We would have to think about how that works with a consultant. So that's something that we can very much keep in mind as we move into that process. I appreciate that thought.
So,
Please go ahead.
as we get into that kind of revenue recovery study, does the city have some sort of a fiscal policy relating to Parks and Rec recovery?
We do not.
Okay. So there's no target?
It's just a choice in the budget every budget cycle.
Right.
And that's part of my, my goal with that would be to set some kind of an actual, I mean, our current fee study does have some recommendations on recovery rates, but I wouldn't suggest that the city as a whole has a directive to the Parks and Rec Department that you need to recover this percentage of your operating. We really don't have that directive. We just go through it each budget cycle and make choices about what we do.
And I'm assuming that each budget cycle is going to get, at least the way things are trending, going to get tighter.
Yeah, yeah, we're primarily general fund funded, which is the most, has the most discretion, also has the most competitive uses in city budgets, as you well know, Ken. So yeah, we're definitely on a trend with, you know, those types of challenges in front of us.
Okay. And then another question was, I think Brian mentioned that the school district started funding the swim team a couple years ago. So what does that actually mean?
I think I'm not sure exactly, but my recollection, Melissa, please feel free. I think he was talking about that it was like an actual sanctioned sport by the school district that they recognized. I think it was sort of had club status before that or something like that.
I'm not quite sure. I don't know if he's referring to when we started charging for lifeguards, because it was an increase to the high schools as far as the lane use because of the added costs that we had from that, but I don't know if that's.
My recollection in conversations with Brian, who again is the head high school coach, sort of, we would need to ask him directly, but I don't speak for him, but I'm just relaying what I'm recalling generally is that they had to do a lot of their own fundraising to support their program before the school district sort of recognized it as one of their official sports. And then they actually budgeted. So the school district, I think the school district began providing funding directly to that in addition to whatever their fundraising was privately.
But we don't know what that.
I don't know the breakdown. I don't know the amounts, but I think that's generally the idea of what you're asking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So the schedule that was presented today, what would be the goal to present that, or what would be the goal for to start that? Like, what month would this kind of take place in? What do you think?
Yeah, you know, initially, when we first went into this work with Councilman Hunziker and we were going to get the final report in January, which we did, I think our hope was we would be thinking of something by the start of fall. So we do this fall shutdown, or it's not technically, it's not the fall season yet, but we call it fall. It's around the first part of September, we do a maintenance shutdown, and that kind of resets our schedule for the year. And then we kind of reopen in second week of September, roughly. Mm-hmm. And so I think the original thinking was, well, that would be a good time to kind of reset something, and then we'd be going into the season where we're working with swim team schedules. But this is much more complex than I think we even envisioned. So I'm giving you a long answer of saying, I don't know at this point, and I think we're going to need more time than we were originally planning for. And what we don't want to do is rush and make a decision that is quick, and then we make the wrong decision. So I'm for saying, let's, take the time that we need, and at some point we'll land on a target start date of something that makes sense. But at this point, I don't think we're on the timeline we were originally envisioning. And some of that question answer depends on what PRAC does, how many more conversations you choose to have about this, and then how we run this through our city commission for either them, at least understanding it, or they may perhaps want to even, make changes to what we bring them. So that's a long answer to say, I don't know.
Well, that was my thought. I mean, we don't meet again until August. We've got Conscious in the Park next month. So, I mean, the only recommendation, and this is not me making a recommendation, I would feel confident in doing tonight, or at least discussing with PRAC, is asking them to not make any changes to the swim schedule until at least spring 2027, to allow time for Oregon City Parks and Rec to review the fees, make the changes that are there to not offset the November through February swim schedule that's in there for the high school. So it doesn't offset their high school portion, and then allow more time for the conversation that's there. Just given how long this conversation is going and knowing that we don't have a meeting for 2 months. Again, I'm not making that recommendation, but that would be the one that I would like to discuss with my fellow PRAC members on if they would feel comfortable with that or their thoughts on that.
And I'd just like to add that we as staff would certainly welcome some type of recommendation like that, you know, if you have an interest of some specific timeline, we'd love to know what that is. I should also add to what I said a minute ago that there isn't anything specific that's driving the timing of this. It's just information that we asked for, that we set out to say, I don't think we're lined up with our community priorities. Let's go figure out that. So we did a process. Now we're engaging in the outcome of some of that information, and we're trying to have a thoughtful conversation with all the different, you know, uses at the pool. And so there's nothing driving a specific timing other than we know we're out of alignment with our priorities. We should recommend to get in alignment. Let's figure that out, but let's do it in a way that's thoughtful. So yeah, I would welcome the.
I was kind of thinking along the same lines that by the time we get here, it'll be kind of hard to go to the school team, you know, right before their season starts and say, oh, by the way. But also, part of this is, you know, it's a good problem to have, I think. So I don't want to lose sight of that, you know, the message is that we don't have enough water. And so I think that that's really important to kind of stay on top of. But also, I think that if we kind of set February, I don't know what you meant by spring.
I just as somebody who obsessively looks at all the Parks and Rec stuff that comes out and lists the schedules, I kind of know how their scheduling works.
The winter,
and how
the catalog.
the winter, the fall. So I was going to recommend that we at least gather more information and that no pool changes happen at least until spring, so we can get that information, so it doesn't affect the sim schedule, so they can plan for their season as well. And it gives us time, August through December, to kind of finalize this, which I think would actually be enough time to gather data and make a good recommendation if we were going to make the changes and have Melissa, you know, open another day or do anything like that. I think that given this, how much feedback we got from the community, that would be the best course.
And then my other question, are we in year 1 or 2 of the budget cycle?
Year 1 is about
Just
to
about
close in a few days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have one more year that we're locked in budget-wise.
Right.
So I think that's at least worth noting. So
Eric?
ideally, before the city starts budgeting, because you probably start your budget process in February as well, or maybe even
Sooner.
a little bit
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
And so we may want to be able to tie in whatever the fee recovery, any of that, so we
Agreed.
can tie it into the budget if that's
Agreed.
possible. I mean, that's even a tight timeline even right now. A
Yeah, we're
year
gonna
is-
start in a few months. We'll start for the next cycle.
Right. Okay.
Aaron, I see your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Tim. I like your ideas, all of that. I think it's a good plan to make sure that we're doing things, moving in a planful way. Originally, when we first started talking about this, the adding Sundays, and Tim, I loved your piece about adding lessons on Sundays, but that was something that would come after changing this schedule. Is there any thought to maybe flipping those to see is there ability to add Sundays faster than the rest of these changes and maybe phase them that way so that we are seeing some benefit earlier than next year? But that's a genuine question. That's not a recommendation or anything. It's a genuine question to see if it's possible.
I mean, I think I would lean on Melissa for that. She knows her staffing, the expertise on that. And my comment on Sundays wasn't meant to say, you know, Melissa, we need swim lessons now. It was just more of a, if we're doing Sundays, let's do it for the reasons we need to do it, that the community feedback is at. So let's not, but of course, if we have to slowly roll it out, get the staffing build it up, I would get it. So I would, yeah, Melissa, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. I mean, it really is highly tied to staffing levels. Right now, a lot of our staffing are unavailable on Sundays due to religious reasons, or they're already working so much on the other days that we're open. So it would take going through and finding additional staff and doing certification classes, and it can take some time to build that up.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Then, Tim, I'm more aligned with what you had suggested for
Yeah.
a proposal recommendation.
I'm trying to find a way to phrase the recommendation. I think the recommendation I would make is to not change swim team hours until we get specific data back at the earliest, the spring schedule of 2027. And that would leave open the conversation of Melissa to get more information on opening up Sundays or making the changes from 5:30 to 8:30 if she wanted to make those that fall in sync, but it wouldn't affect the swim lessons or the swim team or anything like that. So that's where I'm falling at, but I'm open to it. Kevin, sorry, you had your hand for a
Oh,
second.
you're good. In your community surveys, did you survey Sunday to see if people were interested?
we did.
And was there a big need for lessons? on Sunday?
We had asked a question about days they would like to see some lessons, and we had grouped Saturday and Sundays into one option. In the individual comments, we saw a lot of people asking for, I mean, it was pretty split between whether people wanted just Saturdays, just Sundays, or Saturday and Sunday. So
But there was some.
there was some, yeah.
Okay.
I think, you know, again, good problem to have. I think no matter what we end up offering, we're gonna be able to fill it and have people participate.
And then my other question was if we do wait until February, this will affect your fall programming, right? For this upcoming fall, or have you already done all that?
We are putting together our fall programs next week because we have to submit publications and our activity guides.
But is it based on the schedule you showed us?
No,
Okay, that was my other question.
it's based off of our.
I didn't want to mess up your whole
Yeah,
fall
no.
schedule by
It is
delaying this any further.
I forgot to mention that part when the question about when do we think about implementing that we're already behind on thinking about the fall right
Yeah.
now because we work months in advance on like our, you know, our community brochures and all that stuff. So yeah, that was another reason it was like, we're not going to hit that fall timeline.
Well, and any decisions that we make where it's gonna increase the need for more staff, it takes some time to get people certified and trained and hired.
And you said it takes, lessons, you have 6 people on?
Yeah, up to 6 instructors and then 3 to 4 lifeguards. So takes 10 people to do that versus, you know, like a swim team practice or a rental, depending on the size of the rental, can take 2 to 3 lifeguards. So it's a lot more staff heavy for those programs.
I personally don't think it's my job to get stuck in the minutia of your operations.
Sure.
I mean, I think that's what you guys do and you get paid to do that and I don't need to do that. So, I do want to personally rely on you guys for a lot of this information, so that's.
It would be interesting just to kind of see what the revenue projection for a Sunday versus the additional cost, just for kicks, I guess, for nothing else, just to kind of throw it together. And I know that you guys probably do it by FTE, so you have a lot of part-time employees as well as full-time employees that fill all of those roles. So
Yeah.
that's the hard part, to kind of try to figure out whether it's going to be a full-time person. And if you do that, then you got months of negotiating to change their schedule and all that kind of stuff too. So there's just a lot of that it's just not a quick and easy thing. But, you know, just a shot in the dark revenue projection would be kind of cool. Be interesting anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just on a personal note, I work for the government and took over a statewide program that, you know, rents out, does revenue, affects the budget on a federal and a state level. And I took over something where market analysis hadn't been run in decades. And I've had a lot of those uncomfortable conversations with people that the price you paid in 2005 doesn't make sense for 2025. And it is not a fun conversation to have 500 times. And I understand the process that will take and need to go through. But I mean, I think it's something, and we saw it with the cemetery last year. Some of those numbers that they had were, I mean, just so far out of date that, you know, I haven't seen a single pushback on any social media, anything on the changes that have been made there. And I think that this will be more of a common sense increase once we do get there, we run the analysis. But I'm excited for when we do have that and kind of offset the revenue that's there with a lot of our costs. And I think that's the big piece of this puzzle that we're missing through 3 meetings is, you know, I mean, opening Sundays, what is the staffing? Do we have the people to do it? And does it make sense revenue-wise and budget-wise to do it? So, yeah, thought went into that. Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
I think I wanted to just suggest kind of where we're at and next steps, which, and my thought is, well, first of all, this has been a very helpful discussion, just getting your feedback on some specific things, but also just the general thoughts. All of this is a really beneficial conversation because we're trying to do this at the staff level and think about it, but we need to hear community member feedback and we need some different perspectives. So that's all very helpful. Given that we don't meet in July, we don't have another meeting until August. That gives us a good amount of time to really kind of think through some of this. You've given us a lot of food for thought on some things. What I would like to do is bring some thoughts back to you in August, refine what we've presented, respond to some of the questions or suggestions on different things, and then kind of re-gauge where we're at on that, and see, you know, at that point if we're closer to something that we can start setting a timeline and start thinking about a recommendation that you might feel comfortable about. In the meantime, you know, we're not looking to make any changes until we have something solid in place, so that we can just kind of, everybody can have comfort knowing we're not switching anything before we make, you know, determinations in the public view. So I would just suggest we bring some additional information back to you in August that'll kind of move that forward, if that works. And also appreciate the idea of I don't think you necessarily have to pass a motion. You could if you want, but a recommendation or just your kind of general consensus that you know, we're not going to get anything done in the fall, obviously at this point, and you know that kind of pushes us into after the first of the calendar year, perhaps into that, you know, February to springtime, and we'll start landing on some ideas that make sense with the timing, and then we're into our budget season at that point, so that may affect some of what we might recommend as far as timing.
So do you feel like you have enough kind of a general consensus? I mean, I think we all kind of agreed that sounds like.
My only recommendation was going to be to keep the schedule through winter, but it seems like that's not needed really to put out there.
We're already there, right?
Yeah,
I think we're fine, yeah.
I do appreciate your guys' efforts to kind of show us the compromises that it could potentially be, and I think that, you know, with some refinement, I think you're definitely on the right track. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my final closing thought is 2 things. One, change is hard, and we've been doing things a similar way with some of these uses since almost the pool is open. So we do recognize that saying, hey, we're gonna change how we do things. That's an adjustment, and we have empathy around that. We're not trying to put people out, but we are trying to respond to community information and input that we've received. So appreciate that. And then secondly, I want to reiterate, this is a good problem. And it ties in very much to our planning process for what our future looks like. It's a very, very beloved facility. It's well utilized, but it is time to find some more pool space in this community, and we're looking to do that. So
Absolutely.
Yep, the biggest note through 3 months that I've had is that we do not have a modern facility, and that is the biggest issue that we are facing. So, does somebody want to have anything else on this conversation? We can do recommendations. We can say anything else. I'll give it a few seconds before we move forward. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next portion of general business, project updates.
So just going to walk through some updates. We'll be fairly quick here, and I'm going to skip Clackamette and hold that for Tom, because Tom's going to give you some of these updates, and Tom is with us on Zoom tonight. So Aquatic and Recreation Center planning, we held our first open house for that on Tuesday night, 2 nights ago. We had an excellent turnout. We received a lot of feedback, and things went well with that. We are following on that with our community survey that's open on our website. And did we get that QR code?
Yes.
We can pull that up. Would you mind putting that up on the screen? So we're going to put a QR code on the screen. So following the open house, then we released a we released a community survey that is just open and will be open for some time. So we're encouraging people to get the word out and let folks know that there's multiple ways that you can participate. The QR code that's on the screen, in case people out in viewer land want to push the pause button on their video if you're watching this and zap that QR code, it'll take you to the survey. So things are moving along in terms of the planning process, and we've got we're going to have a second open house down the road, and we'll be talking about that more. So that's where we're at on that. Any questions about that process?
Does it take you to the survey, Ken?
Yeah, it does. I tried this
All right, it worked.
I love that.
Yeah. No,
I think
Thanks.
you have to click survey, but yes.
Perfect. Awesome.
And Aaron, thank you for the suggestion of putting this up on the screen to get the word out even more. End of the Oregon Trail planning, so our EOT process, similarly, that we're moving forward. The open house for that, the first community open house, is this coming Tuesday, June 30th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the end of the Oregon Trail. It'll be a very similar format to what we did on the Aquatic and Rec Center. It's just open house style. People come in, we have information about the process, and we have surveys there in person, and people give us some feedback at that. And then similarly, we'll be releasing a community online survey immediately following the open house. So next Tuesday, the 30th, 6 to 8 p.m. And then I'm going to kick it over to Tom to give you some additional updates, including if you can capture that Clackamette update on where we're at, Tom.
Yeah, so I'll start with Clackamette and give an update there. So we did hold our open house meeting in May, just shortly before our May meeting. So we did provide a similar update at that point. Had a lot of great feedback. Our community survey has been open since then, and we've been continuing to gather feedback from the community online. We've also been attending events, and at all of these various open houses, we also have the materials for the other projects that are going on. So if somebody's interested in the pool, they can learn more about what's going on at EOT or at Clackamette. And one of the things we just actually did today was we attended the Lamprey Festival down at Clackamette Park, which is hosted by Yakama Nations Fisheries. Had a great time down there, a lot of interaction with the public, with members of the tribe who came and, got to see the park, and we can actually, talk about the park and talk about it in the context of the site. So that was very fun. So we do have some exciting news to share about Clackamette, though. We do have some funding to get started on this. And there's a couple different series of grants. So we did apply for a Metro Nature and Neighborhoods Capital grant for the first phase of construction, which would focus on the removal of the RV park and the construction of that kind of river amphitheater space. We are recommended for funding, and will be awarded that grant at the July Metro meeting, which takes place on July 21st in the is it Oak Grove, Scott? What's the name
Concord Community Center. What did that end up being called, Kevin?
of that? I think it's Concord Community
Yeah.
Center.
Yeah, Metro is hosting an off-site meeting at a community center.
Yeah, so that's very exciting news, obviously. We've communicated that with the consultant team and are starting to scope out the next phase of work to get that moving forward as we're continuing our public outreach. We also, if you remember, we've talked a lot about the Community Choice Grants program. The voting for that recently closed on June 15th. In all, we were awarded or recommended to award 7 projects in Oregon City, 3 of which are at Clackamette Park. So the 3 projects at Clackamette Park are accessible river experience, so improvements to getting down to the actual river itself, indigenous art, so some sort of artwork piece that we will also work in coordination with the tribes to acquire and produce, and nature play at Clackamette Park. So kind of a first shot in the arm at our play structure. So that's very exciting. All in all, the total award for the 7 projects is $882,000. And that will also be awarded at the July 21 Metro meeting. So, yes, we're very, very excited to have some progress on that. And we'll just continue to seek grant opportunities to match this money with state and federal money and continue to grow that pot.
Tom, I don't know if I missed it, but to mention the amount of recommended award for that Nature and Neighborhoods grant. Did you?
Yeah, the total awards for the Nature and Neighborhoods Capital Grant is 1.5 million, and with 500,000-ish coming from the city, which we have in our West Good Neighbor funds. If you remember us talking about that before, we have this kind of West Good Neighbor agreement with Water Environment Services. We've been building a balance in that account for several years, and those monies really can only be spent in this area. And we have permission from Wes to use them towards Clackamette Park. So that's where our matching fund comes from a lot of this. And then we'll continue to, this grant will then turn into matching funds for a land and water conservation grant, which we'll go for in the fall and hopefully be able to turn 2 million into 4 million.
I mean, that's very exciting. I want to stand up and applaud and everything, but 2.3 million, I mean, that's a great start. Just, get a shovel in the ground. That is awesome, Tom. I just want to say that's very, very exciting to hear. Both of those, the 7 projects and the big grant that I know you've been working on for a while. So that is awesome, guys.
Thank you. I'm very excited. I do just want to mention some of the other projects on that list because they do relate to some of our project updates. So the other projects that were recommended for funding from the community vote are improvements at End of the Oregon Trail. So really focused on kind of the parkland and some improvements in the kind of the garden section and the back section of the park. Inclusive nature play in Chapin. So what this would do is Metro would end up paying for a lot of the natural restoration of the existing play area, new shade trees, new stormwater infrastructure, and that frees up the existing money that we have, plus the potential money from the local government grant for the actual play structure itself. We also have an educational pollinator garden planned at Tyrone S. Woods, and that was funded through this cycle. And inclusive nature play at Rivercrest is the 7th project that was funded. So yeah, we've got lots of projects coming up on the horizon. lots of very exciting work to come.
Yeah.
Jumping over to any questions on that before I jump into Wesley Lynn?
I would say go to Wesley Lynn, and I guess we can just talk about all projects at the end.
So with Wesley Lynn, we have an invitation to bid open right now for the project. We've just, last week, we went to City Commission and secured their approval for the purchase of the site amenities. So those are off with the playground company that also provides things like shelters and benches. And so that all is now on order. Once it arrives, it'll be installed by the contractor. Our invitation to bid is open through July 8th, where we'll hopefully select a qualified contractor to perform the work. So we are on schedule for our late summer, fall opening of the dog park, with substantial completion anticipated to be kind of that November timeframe for the large scale planting portion.
Okay.
With that, I'm open for any questions.
Great. How has the feedback been at the community meetings and other places for Clackamette Park so far? Or how have the survey results been coming in so far?
It's been very good so far. So even just anecdotally today, being on site, lots of people are very excited. I think probably the 2 most exciting parts for people that I've heard are the removal of the RV park and the replacement of that with more community gathering space, the amphitheater concept, and just the idea of any sort of play structure at Clackamette Park, since today it really just exists of the swings. So lots of excitement around those 2 pieces. We still hear related to the boat ramp, the need for a boat ramp, but want to make sure that it's in the right location. So that's some of what we're working on right now is scoping out a new study with our consultant team to look at the river flow and hydrology to confirm that location as the spot. But generally speaking, our feedback has been very good and people are very excited about this potential funding source that's now being announced and will be more publicly announced over the next month.
Thank you. All right, opened up for questions. Anyone on any of the project updates? No? Guys are just crushing it. We're just gonna move right through here, okay? Let's go ahead and move to our next admin general business, summer recreation and events update.
And I think Tom's gonna go ahead and just keep going on that one too.
Yeah. So before we get into kind of the schedule of events that's upcoming in the next couple months, I do just want to recognize that this coming month, July, is the nationally recognized Parks and Recreation Month, which is coordinated by the National Recreation and Park Association and was federally recognized by the House of Representatives, I think in the 90s, if I remember correctly. This year's celebration is celebrating the power of parks and recreation. And so you'll start to see next week at City Commission, they'll be doing a proclamation recognizing Parks and Recreation Month and Parks and Recreation staff who lead that effort and the community benefits that it provides. So there's a couple areas of, kind of focus that NRPA put together for this year's campaign, and I just want to highlight them. This is kind of a summary of an article that we have in the upcoming Trail News. The first one is the power of connection, and our team and the community at large really, that's what parks are all about, right? The power of connection. Concerts in the park, which are coming up starting here in the next couple weeks. That's a huge opportunity for people to connect. But it's also just the conversations on a park bench or these shared spaces where people gather and really, kind of knit that social fabric of the city. The power of play, obviously that's, a lot of parks are used for play for all ages, childhood development, and lifelong joy. We really appreciate all our various partners who help us provide those services here in Oregon City. In a lot of cases, we provide a facility, but there's a local nonprofit or advocacy group that actually helps produce, youth sports and things like that. So we're very grateful for the work that they do and our partnerships together with them. The power of community, again, public spaces, public land is one of the things that I personally am most passionate about in the work that we do. And that's something that we do both in our programs and our facilities. The power of nature, obviously with these green spaces, we're protecting, really necessary and vital green space here in Oregon City. And these places give people a place to breathe, restore, and reconnect with nature. And the last one is just the power of belonging. And I think you see that when you go and visit our facilities, when you see our programs, when you see everything that we're doing, you can see how much these spaces really welcome everyone and how we strive to design parks and programs that welcome every member of our community, regardless of age, ability, or background. So I just wanted to highlight that, and then we'll jump into the actual schedule. So starting this weekend, we have Oregon City Heritage Days. The theme this year is America 250 Years in Flags and Fashion at the Ermitinger House, and that exhibit is running from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on June 27th. Also on June 27th, we'll have our Pride Swim at the Oregon City Pool, which we're very excited about. And then next week, we jump right into the 4th of July community celebration down at End of the Oregon Trail. And our theme this year is OC Unity. And we're really excited for that laser light show, which just continues to expand and get better every year. So we're very, very thankful to the staff who put that on and the sponsors who helped make that event a success. The following Thursday, July 9th, starts the concert series. So 6:30 p.m. on Thursdays, July 9th through August 13th. We have a full slate of concerts, some very exciting bands this year. The first concert this year on July 9th is actually going to have a special start time. It's going to start a little earlier. We have a double header, and we're calling it Hometown Night. We have two Oregon City residents who, either grew up here or still live here who are going to be performing, and we're very excited for that. And check our website for the full schedule. And then Movies in the Park start July 24th, and those run, we've got July 24th at Wesley Lynn Park, we've got August 4th at End of the Oregon Trail, and that'll be, again, in collaboration with Oregon City Police Department and their National Night Out event. August 14th will be at Hillendale Park, and August 21st will be at Chapin Park. And we have the full list of movies available up on the website right now. I think that's the end of my list.
And I'll just add quickly that this week actually kicked off our summer season officially with all of our recreation camps and activities and swim lesson programs for the summer. And of course, Pioneer Center, we've got just continuous activities and programs going on there. So this is this week began our very, very busy season, and our staff have been working diligently to get everything in place. So we're off and running for the summer. So if there are any questions, otherwise I'm going to just move to the next item. But if there was anything you had, I wanted to pause real quick.
Go ahead.
So the last item that we had on updates was the National Recreation Parks Association, or NRPA, membership, and want to just inform the committee that, so if you're not familiar, I think probably a lot of you are, but NRPA is a nonprofit that supports park and recreation agencies across the country, like ourselves, city parks and rec, districts, special providers, whatever. There are tens of thousands of people are members of that. So so NRPA's mission is, as a nonprofit, they support parks and rec agencies through education, advocacy, things like the National Park and Rec Month that Tom just spoke about. They lead that campaign and get that information out. Networking, conferences, all types of things. So that's our national agency that provides that support. As part of that, so Oregon City Parks and Rec is an agency member. We have a full agency membership, which provides us some benefit of a whole bunch of our staff get to be individual members, but also we have the opportunity to have all of you on our Parks and Rec Advisory Board be members of that. And before we just went ahead and provided your information individually, we wanted to inform you of that and also give you the opportunity if for some reason you don't want us to give them your contact info. So what it would mean is we'd have to give them, we don't have to, but we would provide them with an address, which could be the one that we have for each of you. You would receive mailings once in a while about information, and your email address, which you would get kind of on the regular, you would get updates from them. If you would prefer just not to be included in that at all, we would ask you to let us know that. You don't have to do that tonight, just let us know offline, but in the near future. Or if you're more comfortable, like with your mailing address not being your personal, but you could just have that directed through our city Parks and Rec address, then we would just compile a stack of things and give it to you at the next meeting. So just informing you that you all get to be individual members of NRPA, and we were planning to sign you up for that, but we'd want to hear from you if you'd like to opt out of any piece of that as described.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on that? As Scott said, if you want to be off that list, you can talk to them after this meeting or send them an email in that regard. All right, let's go ahead and move in. It's not on the agenda, but I'm going to make a note of it for member reports. If anyone has a member report that they'd like to, it's just your time to talk parks, anything that's out there that you would like to do.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So Hazel Grove Westling Farms, which I live in, had a neighborhood party on the 7th, and it was nice to see all my neighbors out there with the neighborhood association. I updated those that wanted to know about park issues, so that's fun. I'm excited about the concert at the park. Haley Verholland is going to play the first concert down there at the park. So I don't know if she's on first or second, but she's
I think she's part of the hometown.
the first day. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm excited about that. So
Awesome. I just want to give a shout out to the splash pads. I've been there a couple times. They've been great. I've not been to the wading pool yet or seen how the lifeguards working there. I know it's shut down the next day or two or something along those lines, but
Yes, it's raining
It's
the
raining.
next week, so
Yes, it is
it may
raining.
not be open.
all weekend.
Yep.
But I just want to give a shout out. See nothing but happy faces and everything at the splash pad. So that's all I have. Aaron, go ahead.
Mine's really similar, Tim. We had our last day of school. My child attends St. John the Apostle, and we had a informal get together at that splash pad. And I swear I haven't seen more kids there, and everyone was happy, and it was great. So I just want to say thanks to all the team for getting those up. It felt even a little early this year, so I really appreciate that. And then I wanted to compliment the artwork for the concerts in the park. Really exciting graphic design and the way that you're marketing that. I think it looks really great. I saw it, I think, in the local Menchie's, and it really caught my eye. So I wanted to say congrats on that. Good job.
I guess what I'd say is I took my daughter and I went to the Aquatic Park, Aquatic and Recreation Center planning meeting. We both enjoyed it, and it was lots of fun to be able to provide input, and it was well attended. So you guys did a great job with that.
I guess I just echo the spray pads. Those kids just love them. So Rivercrest was just packed.
Yeah.
So and has been, I think, for every day. You know,
Every time I've been there.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do with grandkids for the next few days, but I'm going to have to come up with something. But it's hard to beat Rivercrest when you're doing it.
I'm excited for the rain. I might be the only one. Melissa,
It smells really good right now
Yeah.
outside. So that's the best part.
Melissa, go ahead.
Yeah, so I live right over in the Rivercrest neighborhood, and the park has been booming the last few days since school got out, so that's been really nice. I mean, it's great. It's great to see all the kids out and having fun.
All right. I'm going to go ahead. Next scheduled meeting is August 27th. We will be off in July, so we can be at those concerts in the park. We are officially adjourned.
I